Atelier is a series I didn't get into until Ryza, and then I played Yumiya, and I loved all of those games. So Atelier Resleriana is an interesting release for me because everyone keeps talking about how it kind of throws back to the old school Atelier, the games that existed and shined long before I got into the series. So I'm really excited to jump in and see what that has to offer. I've spent a ton of time with Atelier Resleriana, and my feelings are a little bit mixed, and we'll get into that, but I wanted to give you guys my thoughts and impressions on the game so far as someone who kind of got into the series much later, a more modern Atelier perspective, for lack of a better way of putting it, and kind of hopefully provide something a little bit different. I know there's people that have been in the series for a really long time, and then this will be the first game for some people, and then there's people like me that kind of came into the series with Ryza and are more modern Atelier fans. So let's get into it. Atelier is a long-running series unlike any other. It focuses heavily on crafting and alchemy, and the games are built entirely around these concepts. Atelier Resleriana, the Red Alchemist, and the White Guardian is the most recent release, and with that, I want to give a huge shout out to Koei Tecmo for providing a review code for the game so I could play it early and give you all my initial thoughts. I've been spending quite a bit of time with this one, not quite enough to call this a full review, but I'm about 15 to 20 hours into the game, and I just want to get this out there so you guys know how I'm feeling about the game so far. My feelings are a little mixed at the moment. There are parts of this game I really love and adore, and there's others I've been struggling to connect with, but the important thing here is that the longer I play, the more I find myself warming up to it, which is always a promising sign. When I first booted up Atelier Resleriana, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. The Atelier series is one I'm relatively new to, having just started with Ryza. It has always been known for its cozy alchemy systems, charming characters, and a lighter touch compared to a lot of other JRPGs. Resleriana feels both familiar and different at the same time. I know this is supposed to be a bit more of a throwback to the games that came before I got into the series in terms of its structure, and that was something I was actually really looking forward to here. Everyone talks about how Ryza, and especially Yumiya, strayed away from what made the others so special, so I was excited to dive into this one and see what I've been missing. Kicking things off with the positives, the character designs are fantastic. Honestly, one of the strongest aspects right out of the gate. Every time a new party member popped up, I really liked the charm and personality in their designs. It's colorful, expressive, and distinctly familiar to the Atelier series. The music also stood out quickly. It has this airy, whimsical charm that matches the series' tone, but there are these tracks that hit harder than I expected, giving some flair to the battles or more emotional story beats. It's one of those soundtracks that gently pulls you along without being overly distracting, which is exactly what I want out of a game like this. And then there's the main thread pulling me forward, and that's the shop building and the life sim elements. Easily one of my favorite parts of the game so far, and it's honestly what kept me going in the early stages when I wasn't having the best time. I'll dive into the details of that a little bit later, but I've always enjoyed when JRPGs give me space to breathe or build something to just exist in the world outside of the combat. Crafting items, running the shop, slowly expanding my role in the community here scratches that itch perfectly. It's rewarding without being overwhelming, and it gives you something meaningful to engage with when you're not progressing the main quest. Fairies are unlocked and you can employ them at your shop. Each of them have their own skills and things they are particularly good at, like one may be good at customer service and one may be good at organization. You can assign them accordingly and level up your shop quicker by doing so. I actually really like this, and as the game progresses, you will find these systems get deeper and deeper as well. It's now time to get into the things that I wasn't really gelling with this game early on. Where things start to stumble for me is the combat. At least in the early hours, and I want to be fair here because I know from what I've played later on and from hearing others experience that combat does get quite a bit better as you progress. But early on, it's a little too easy and honestly too simplistic. You can sort of autopilot your way through battles without engaging that much with strategy or skill. This makes those first several hours feel a little flat for me. It takes a while for all those systems to get introduced here, so if you aren't familiar with Atelier, you might be thrown off by the fact that there's not much depth or challenge at the beginning. JRPGs often take their time to ramp up, sure, but in Resleriana, it feels like it just takes a little bit too long for me before the systems start to really show their depth. The result is that the beginning struggled to hook me through its moment-to-moment gameplay, and if you're someone who values challenging, more tactical turn-based combat from the start, you might feel the same way I did. This leads me to the characters. I loved Ryza, I loved Yumiya, I loved them as protagonists, and all the supporting characters were really well written. One of the things I was hoping for was a compelling central cast to kind of carry me through those early hours, but in Resleriana, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Slade, as one of the main characters, unfortunately feels quite a bit one note. There's a lack of depth in his writing early on, and I kept waiting for moments where he'd reveal some nuance or complexity. That just hasn't happened in the first stretch of the game. It's not that he's unbearable or anything, he's fine, but fine isn't really enough when you're asking me to spend dozens of hours with these characters. Rias, on the other hand, fares so much better. She's the kind of character that feels more alive, more layered, and I'm hoping things get more fleshed out for everyone by the end, but so far I have some mixed feelings about it. Another thing I want to mention is the environments and how you move through them. This is where I think Atelier Resleriana might test some people's patience. The maps often feel like mazes, and not in a fun, more exploratory way. Yumiya and Ryza felt a bit more open and gave a lot of room for player freedom when it comes to exploration. But in Resleriana, the areas are tighter and more confined at times. There are blocked pathways early on that only open much later, and while that sort of design can work in some contexts, here it feels more cumbersome. Instead of feeling like you're uncovering a carefully designed world, it can feel like you're fighting against that level design just to get where you need to go. And in a game that already has that slower start to the combat and the moment-to-moment gameplay, that extra bit of friction doesn't really help much. I know it's sounding like I'm a little bit more down on the game, but I'm actually having a good time. So here's the good news. The game does improve as you stick with it. The deeper I get, the more crafting opportunities open up. And the more those systems really start to shine, the more the crafting clicks. It changes the way you approach the whole experience. Suddenly you're thinking about resources, recipes, and how to optimize what you're making. That's classic Atelier, and it's one of the reasons I keep coming back to the series. When I'm knee deep in those systems, the frustrations with combat or navigating fade into the background because I'm enjoying myself in a very different way. And to the game's credit, that sense of improvement feels intentional. It's almost like Resleriana is slowly peeling back layers, rewarding the player for sticking with it. The downside is that it takes a long time to get there, and not everyone is going to have that patience, but for me, I found that the longer I play, the more I discover little things to enjoy, whether it's a new synthesis option, a side activity, or just appreciating how the music kind of ties everything together. So where does that leave me with Atelier Resleriana? It's a game that stumbles out of the gate in some frustrating ways, overly simple early combat, a protagonist who feels a little bit flat compared to a supporting cast, and some maps that are more confusing than fun to navigate. But it also has a lot of heart and a lot of the series DNA that makes the game so comforting to spend time with. That shop building, the life sim elements, the beautiful character designs, and the charming music all kept me engaged long enough to push through those early hours. And once I did, the experience started to open up in ways that reminded me why I play this series in the first place. If you're on the fence, I'd say this. Resleriana might not grab you right away, but if you're willing to invest the time, there's a rewarding experience waiting underneath. It's not perfect, and it won't be for everyone, but I'm glad I've stuck with it, and I plan to stick with it for 10, 20, 30 more hours, however long it takes to finish it. And I'll definitely be continuing to see where it goes from here. And after I'm done, I'll come with a full review to let you all know how I feel about the whole game. If you're going to be playing Atelier Resleriana yourself, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game and the series as a whole. Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading your thoughts, and until next time, I'm out.
捕らえた。力を解放する。